here. So
Yep.
I am now recording, and I'll show you where we're going to post all these recordings here in just a second and some of the tools that we'll be using throughout these next 2 weeks. Jeff Butler here. I'll be one of your master teachers over these next 2 weeks for Project Lead the Way Capstone, formerly known as Engineering, Design, and Development. And I know we have people here from all different backgrounds, some of you from biomedical, some from engineering, some from computer science, and some from all three above. And even though I may not be an expert in computer science or biomedical, I'm sure that we can kind of help each other out from our backgrounds and expertise as we go through this process over the next 2 weeks. I'm from the state of New York. I was actually luckily a Project Lead the Way student back in the day when they first started out, Liverpool High School, Central New York. So it's kind of neat because I actually took this class, EDD, as a high school student. And it's kind of neat how the whole class evolved over the years to what it is today. And back during face to face, I was saying Scott and I, we worked with each other for a summer out in California, but all over the country, Texas, Kentucky, Oregon, Minnesota, Missouri, Rochester, running these trainings. And hey, face to face, a lot of good benefits as far as being with each other in class for 8 hours, but also too, these virtual environments, there's some good benefits as well, but we'll try to make the best of that and kind of show you how we do things in the classroom and try to substitute that for our online experience. Scott, want to talk a little bit about yourself here?
Sure. I've been teaching for about a little over a dozen years now. Prior to that, I was 11 years in the defense industry making jet engines for the Army. I have two bachelor's degrees in engineering. And then I worked for a telephone company for some years. And then, uh, a- a- we had the thanks for helping you win the Cold War. Why don't you find a new job invitation back then? And then I was with the telephone company and then a telephone equipment manufacturer, and then the telecom bubble burst, and so lost that job. And I finally realized, you know what, I could start. I know math, I can teach, and so I started teaching math. And then the school said, "Hey, we've got this new engineering thing coming, and there's an aerospace engineering class. Would you like to teach that?" I said, "Yes, please." And it's just kind of gone from there. And so I'm now teaching engineering full time, and so I'm certified in IED, uh, POE, aerospace, digital electronics, and capstone. So, and this is by far my favoriteest class to teach because it's just so diverse of everything that we do, and also. And the idea that PLTW came up with making it the capstone for all three of the high school things is fantastic. I think that's just awesome. So welcome all of the computer and health sciences folks along.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
Over these next 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about these engineering journals, and we actually left a little activity for you to look at before we start on day one, which is on Monday, the 21st. God, I can't believe July is already melting away here. Uh, Practically the way they sent out these nice swag boxes. Scott, you probably got this big oversized box, and inside it, there's just like a couple small little things. But inside there was probably an engineering journal. It looks something like this, if you all can see my video camera. This journal, we're going to be using that over the next 2 weeks when we start working together, identifying problems, getting together in some design teams, and going through the process. But one of the things that we always remind our students is as we go along this whole process that we trust the process, we're always going to be utilizing that journals, and Scott and I will be talking more about the journals over the next couple days here during training. And then from the journals, we'll be using a variety of computer software programs, mostly like Google Doc type of stuff. That's where the teams are going to be collaborating. Google Docs, Google Slides, the Sheets program, different forms on there. Eventually, you'll be drawing something out as part of your solution. And it doesn't matter if it's Onshape or Fusion, usually some type of 3D modeling program works fine. And not everyone has 3D modeling experience because we're from all different backgrounds here. Just like sometimes we have students that are in our capstone class that may have different backgrounds, but that's kind of where we rely on our team members to kind of help out and take charge. So if someone's really good at drawing, that may be their job for the day is to work on some type of 3D modeling, 3D drawing for the class. And then eventually we put everything in either an online portfolio, it could be a website, it could be a physical binder. But we always tell students, journal, we're going to do everything through that journal. And after the journal, that's when we're using some of the computer-based stuff. And I know, Scott, you've been teaching this class for a while too, and I'm sure your students, you try to get them motivated with the journal is a big part of your classes as well.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. I'll have for our first day of class. I buy a different notebook for this class in particular. It's a hardbound professional one, a lot more expensive than the other ones, but I get it embossed with their name on it and everything, and we have a deal. I have them come up and I welcome them to engineering and shake their hands, and we take pictures and all. So we make a deal out of it, um, because whatever you're doing with this, protecting your intellectual property is the thing that's important because the kids are smart. They'll come up with stuff, and you will too, and you want to protect it. So we talk a lot about that kind of stuff with it.
Yeah, and it is a big deal, and I'm glad you brought that up, Scott, because these kids, they've used engineering journals before or lab notebooks, and you know, I try to get my students and other instructors to train those students when they take IED classes, computer science classes, their regular health science type classes, so that when they do get to capstone, they already know how to use an engineering journal. So now let's invest a little more money and get one of those hardbound ones, and we'll share with you when we start talking about setting up journals, some different vendors. If you have the budget for it, it's always great. Bottom line is you're going to hear us say a lot, through this whole process and with our students, nothing's ever wasted. We're going to be doing some research in here. We're going to be coming up with some problems we're going to be identifying, and it's always focused on the process. It's the process that's going to take us from possibly identifying a problem to coming up with the best solution. It usually doesn't work out too well if you come to training with a problem and a solution already in mind. It's good just to think about solutions. And I know us as professionals, as teachers, and even us with our past life experiences, we've become natural kind of experts at designing problems. But part of this class is to kind of learn this process that's going to help the team go through, identify a problem, and come up with the best solution. So we're going to kind of be talking about this. Hey, focus on the problem, focus on the problem. Don't think solutions yet. Allow this capstone Project Lead the Way process to kind of guide you for the best solution. Today we're just going to talk real quick. Like I said, we're not going to be any more than half an hour here, so we should get you out of here shortly. Again, thank you for being here on time. But we just want to go over some of the guidelines, talk about the session and meet times. We have this cohort connection, and then on your own time. There's also this wonderful curriculum delivery system known as E3 that Project Lead the Way has transitioned to. Talk a little bit more about this class. And then we have a little activity for you all, which has to do with setting up the engineering journal and a little bit about starting to think about possible problems. And that will be something that's going to kind of carry you through to the first day of class. Our classes do run July 21st, that's next Monday, through Friday, August 1st. So we're together for 10 days, and you're going to get a certificate for 80 hours. I know that seems like a lot, but Scott and I, trust us, we've been doing this for a while. We're going to try to make this training as easy and as stress-free as possible, but you have to trust us. What we did is we kind of laid out day by day, morning session, an afternoon session on things that the team need to kind of do together so that when you're together, when you're on your own, when you're with your team, we're making sure that we're getting all these deliverables done. So it is an 80-hour training. 40 of those hours are together face to face, 2 hours in the morning from 11 to 1, and then 4 to 6 together again. So it's for the in-between time before a class starts or at night, that's kind of for on your own time when you're going to be doing some of these blocks assignments, block submissions, and going through that E3 system. Most of our office hours will be kind of in the afternoon. It's a lot of Scott and I talking right at the beginning, especially the first day and part of the second day. But eventually, Scott and I, we're just going to log on, maybe just go over a couple little things, and it's going to be you and the teams working in breakout rooms. So while you're working out in breakout rooms, Scott and I, we're going to be visiting the teams, seeing if you need anything, and providing some assistance to you. So, you will get a lot of this stuff done within our 11 to 1 and 4 to 6 cohort connection time. But just please be advised that there will be some class time outside of our scheduled meet times for you to do some of those deliverables. So again, it's 40 hours together, and then the other 40 is on your time. I don't think it's going to take you those 40 hours of on your own time, but we just need to let you know and understand that, just be cautious. You don't want to plan a family trip while, taking this class because that can be an issue as well. There is an attendance policy. If anything does come down the pipeline, we understand we're human. Things sometimes come up. We have little emergencies and everything. If there is any issues, just please email Scott and I, just CC both of us with any attendance or personal issues. Please don't announce them during our public cohort connection times. Just email those to us so that we can work with you to get you caught up. But just so you know that all online professional development comprises of 10 or 20 blocks for a 10% absences allowed with prior approval from the master teachers. So just so you know, with this being a 20 block training over 10 days, we understand that sometimes something may just come up real quick last minute, but we do require you to make up those times. So again, if something does come up, just please email Scott and myself, and we will work with you to make sure that you're caught up, especially when we start working together as a team, because a lot of these deliverables you have to be with your team to do. But again, this is the attendance policy. It's not Scott and I making this up. It's just what we're required to do. Scott, anything else on attendance?
No, just it's one of those things. Make sure that if for any reason that your primary method of dialing into the class has a problem, make sure you have a phone or something secondary device where you can shoot an email or a text message saying, "Hey, the computer crashed. I'll be with you in a little bit," or something like that, just so that we don't start worrying. I think Jeff, you're a dad. I'm a dad, and I get very worried when somebody who's supposed to be here isn't. And I said, "Are you okay?" So ask the folks in my class now because I've emailed them a couple of times saying, "Hey, where are you?" So just as long as you keep us informed as to what's going on, things will run fairly smoothly.
Yeah, some good points there. Uh, there's a couple different ways. We're going to say that, hey, Capstone's not like any other high school class. And also, too, this Project Lead the Way training is really different from other Project Lead the Way trainings. And some of you have experienced these trainings face to face. Some of you have taken online classes. I know some of you are currently taking a class right now and couldn't be here with us because there's a little conflict. But just know that this capstone class is even just set up a little different from some of those other Project Lead the Way classes. So there's going to be some like daily blocks, but the way this class works is not necessarily is it going to match where, hey, it says block 3, that should be day 2 and this and that. But trust us, the way that we paced everything out, you will get through everything. There may be some times where it's like, hey, a day went by and I can't answer this block question yet. Trust us, as the team goes through certain deliverables, you'll go back and actually add those things into these daily blocks. So these daily blocks, and you'll have some time to kind of take a look at the PLTW curriculum. What Project Lead the Way has done is they started streamlining everything in this new E3 system, which is almost like a live document. So if they find like a spelling error within one of their PowerPoints, they can correct it live and everything gets updated. But there's the actual course area, but then there is the professional development area where you'll see like the separate blocks inside there. And inside those separate blocks, that's where you'll be doing some of your submissions. And I know some of you who may have just registered or just joined, now my screen may look a little different, but there's a professional development area, and that's where you'll have access to the course and some of the blocks. So just know when you do log on to My PLTW, the course is where you'll be accessing the actual course content, just like your students. But this professional development area, that's where you're going to see the course that we're going to be taking for this summer. We're just going to have you do some block submissions, and it's going to have you take a look at a fictitious sample high school capstone class where you have some students with engineering backgrounds, biomedical backgrounds, computer science backgrounds. So that's going to be more for on your own time to kind of go through, click through, visit some of the links, and answer some reflections as we go through training. You all should have access. We're going to be using this Capstone shared folder, and every day we're going to be posting a lot of resources, a lot of PowerPoints, and some of these are legacy PowerPoints because these are good to have. You know, some of these PowerPoints you can't change on the E3 system, but Scott and I are going to give you so many resources that you can download, you can upload. I know I use Google Classroom at school. Scott, I don't know what platform you're using, but they're going to have all these PowerPoints, and they're great PowerPoints, but sometimes I'm like, hey, I don't need an 80 slide long PowerPoint file on how to do research. You know, I can whittle this down, and that's what I like about having some of these legacy slides. So we're going to give you tons and tons of stuff. So every day we have class, we will make the folder live. So technically today is day 0. So if you open up day 0, there's some, there's the PowerPoint that we're using right now inside there, but you'll see some example graphics in there. This here is the capstone design process that we'll be following over the next 2 weeks when we identify our problem, when we come up with the solution. There's the old EDD flowchart inside there where you'll see these little tiny elements next to each step. Those little elements is how our capstone class is organized through My PLTW. So you're going to hear us say things like, design process. You're going to hear us say things like, what element are we on? Element A, element B. So really the elements is just how we categorize each step of this design process. Also in this day 0 folder, and we're going to send an email out just to kind of remind you, but there's a little activity that we're going to have you do kind of on your own. Is just setting up your engineering journal. If you did not get a journal, you can probably pick one up at Staples, at Walgreens, Walmart, but just make sure it's a journal just for this class. Say if you've taken IED or POE over the summer, or maybe you are from the medical field or computer science and if you have an extra notebook, we just ask that it's going to be a brand new notebook that we're going to use together for this capstone class. So when you have the notebook, there's a little video here that's just going to kind of walk you through setting up this notebook, just setting up a spot in the back to record context in, another area to set up resources in, and then we're just going to ask you to, hey, think about problems. You don't necessarily need to write those in your journals yet, but that's an activity that we're going to be doing together over the first day is after we understand a little bit about what this course is about, we're going to start doing some problem identification and talk about techniques we do with our students. Scott, anything else I'm missing out right there?
Yeah, you may not have run into this, but we did in this last period. So for these 2 weeks, always enter through the professional development. And there is a place, I was just looking it up under Cohort Connection 1. There are links to the student side of the curriculum and the teacher guide to it. Do not go in through courses. The reason why is we had 30 students in the class, and the next day we only had 29. And I asked the lady when she was on the call that day, I said, "Are you dropping the course?" "No." Well, after going through the Solution Center at PLTW and everything, it came back from training. Yeah, if you start over there and then you open it up over there, it'll kick you out of the roster. Now, it was a relatively simple fix, and I still have it, but it, yeah, just go through the professional development side for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, so
The
yeah,
weird
that's a
version.
good point. So when you're on My PLTW, it's the one that says professional development, and that's gonna kind of be the main deliverable that we'll be using over the next 2 weeks here. But really, this class, like Scott was saying, it's going to become your favorite class to teach. Hopefully, you'll have some seniors inside there. Hopefully, they had some other Project Lead the Way classes before coming to your class. There are some exceptions you can make, but it's mostly dealing with these seniors. And yeah, they start getting quirky, but that's where Scott and I come in. We're going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly with dealing with these high school teenagers. And they've never had to work together on any project other than maybe like a couple day long English research project, or maybe they're on the football team together, that kind of helps a little bit, but they're going to learn a lot about themselves. They're going to learn a lot about team norms and problem solving and how to kind of put each other's differences aside. We're going to be talking about team norms inside here and how does a team actually function. And I know, Scott, you probably can even say too, this is probably one of the classes that after kids go off to college, they're going to come back and say, you know what? This is one of my favorite classes because of all the soft skills that they learn through this capstone class that they don't get in any other class.
Yeah. I had a young fellow come back to me towards the end of his freshman year, and he says, "Oh, Mr. McClenaghan, this was so great because all the time in all my classes, I was like 2 weeks ahead of everybody on the projects, and they would ask me, why are you so far ahead?" Well, first of all, I got out my engineering notebook. What's an engineering notebook? And then I laid out my Gantt chart for what I was going to do. What's a Gantt chart? They said, where did you learn all this? High school. What? Yeah, and so yeah, they just it really jazzes them up the fact that they're at a level of professionalism as engineers before they're even in their freshman year of engineering school. So lots of fun for them with that.
Yeah. Um, and more schools, they're looking for some type of capstone as like an exit project for students because they're realizing there needs to be a way for students to showcase all these classes they've taken. And I mean, we all know it. We're all kind of in the STEM field here, and it's all about, applying all these different backgrounds for problem solving. But, some students, they're not getting these skills and they don't have the opportunity to take this capstone class. But all the research and data shows that more schools need these type of exit classes, teaching them the soft skills because we know they're not getting it from home and they're not getting it in some of the other classes. So sometimes in this class, you kind of veer off the curriculum a little bit and you're teaching them where to place a postage stamp on a letter and where the return address goes and how to even write a basic business letter if you're asking a company for a donation or asking for some type of feedback. So a lot of little things that we'll be covering inside here. But just remember, the journal will just be for this class only. Again, if you don't have a journal yet, I mean, you could email the Solutions Center, but I don't think they'll get it out to you soon enough in time. But as long as it's a bound journal, brand new, ready to go for this class, that'll be great. There is the journal activity we posted, and I will email this out to you. But it's a little video that you can kind of play and pause. It's just setting up the engineering journal, and that's just to help us out get started when we come back together on day one for our first full day together. But you know what? That journal may become a legal document. Scott was talking about patents. You may end up getting money on this. Scott, should we tell them now if they make money, they owe us a little piece of it? Or
Oh,
we'll
absolutely.
wait till
Yeah.
after. Okay.
Yeah.
But again, that's not the goal of the class. The goal isn't to be on Shark Tank. The goal isn't to get a patent, even though it does happen, which is awesome. However, we're here to learn the process, and we're going to have fun doing that over the next 2 weeks. When you set up your journals, just start thinking about what do you like? What do you love? I always tell students if you had to go out and buy some magazines, and I'll talk about this little magazine topic area. If your parents said, hey, you're at the airport and here's 50 bucks, buy 5 magazines. What kind of magazines would you want to buy? What are some things that you may be passionate about? Mine may be golf, fitness, hiking, fishing, home improvement, because those ultimately may become your topic as far as problem identification goes, but those may be your topics or your students' topics for their capstone project. So just something to think about as you're setting up your journals, think about, what are some topics that I like? Do you like gardening? What do you like doing outside the classroom? Or maybe it is school related. We have a lot of people here that are very passionate about maybe their robotics team, maybe something they do for the school. That's great too. But I just try to get people thinking and getting those creative juices flowing to start thinking about things that they like, things that they love, things that they're passionate about, because that's going to help us when we start identifying possible problems, which may become our topic over the next 2 weeks. And Scott, you know how these high school kids are. You ask them, "Hey, what do you like?" And they're like, TikTok." All right. Well, it's hard to get them to really think about things that they like, things that they love, things that they're passionate about. Probably one of the hardest steps of this whole class is just them trying to identify different problems. So we are going to open up some Q&A here, just trying to be conscious of your time. So what's next? If you did not get one of those journals, make sure you have a brand new journal ready to go. We will send an email out between today and the first day just to kind of talk about that little mini activity of just setting up a couple pages inside your journal. But again, think about what your loves are. What do you like? Because that may become part of your project focus over this course over the next 2 weeks. But other than that, we will meet you all back Monday, 11 o'clock East Coast time. If you just want to log in a couple minutes early, so this way we can just start right on time, that would be wonderful. But Scott, anything else for the recording before I pause and open up to any Q&A?
Not off the top of my head right now.
Awesome.